Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Council of Elrond, a Lord of the Rings podcast. On today's episode, we are going to be diving into the character of Boromir and discuss some things you may not already know. As always, we would love to hear your thoughts on anything we have discussed, so please get in touch on any of our social media platforms. Stick around to the end of the podcast to hear the interesting reason why Sean Bean is so similar to his character Boromir.
If this is indeed the will of the Council, then Gondor will see it done.
So, we all know Boromir from the films. How would you describe him to someone who has never seen the movies, Johnny? What do you know about his personality?
Boromir is strong. He's valiant. He's just basically the perfect warrior. I know that in the movies we just get to see a small part of his personality, and he kind of comes across as like the kind of half villain, I suppose. Like, you know, there's most of the time that Boromir is on screen, he's kind of thought of as the villain, and then he kind of gets a bit of his redemption at the very end of the movie. But a lot of the time he's portrayed in this kind of, he's a weak man, and that he's not strong enough to resist the ring. But we know from the books especially that he's actually a really strong warrior. He's a really he's like a leader of men, and he is like the best if you want to like pick one person out of the entire race of men to represent you and to do like to have the heart and the honor of men, he's probably the number one candidate.
Yeah, everyone wants to be a Boromir, really.
Yeah, I want to be a Boromir.
Yeah, no, that was I want to be a Boromir. That was a perfect description. Yeah, that's the podcast, folks.
The end.
The end.
That's Johnny's man crush. Boromir.
Yeah, Boromir is a man crush.
I've always been a big Boromir fan. Like, as in from like, I don't know. I've always had this like little like, oh, I love Boromir. He's like, I think he's possibly my favorite character. He's one of these guys that I think gets overlooked a lot for like one of the coolest characters, and I think I just really love Boromir.
Definitely from the movies alone. If you were just going to see the films, if you came out of the first one, you're like, who's your favorite character? I actually think I remember you always loving Boromir a lot, and that probably made me love him so much as well, because I was only like 5 or 6 when the movies were coming out, and you were like, oh, my favorite character is Boromir, and I was like, oh, my brother likes that guy, I'm gonna like him too. And because of that, I always kind of loved him as well, because I think, you know, Aragorn's too perfect. So.
Yeah, I think he was one of these kind of like not so he was kind of like not so well understood, Boromir. And I think when you watch the movies, you kind of, you're not too sure about his character. And I especially remember the very first time that I saw the Two Towers extended edition, and when we saw that scene of Boromir when they've retaken Osgiliath, and you're kind of going, that's the Boromir that I wanted to see more of. And he's just such a like proud and honorable, and he's also kind of the perfect big brother as well to Faramir. And it's just,
and his armor as well is so cool. Like, why was that left out of the movie? I'll never know.
Oh, and you could just see all of the army of Gondor are just looking up to Boromir. He's standing up on top of that big broken wall with a big flag, and you're saying that everyone's just chanting Gondor, and he is there leading the chant. And he's just, you know, he's a proper lad.
He is a proper lad.
For Gondor! For Gondor! For Gondor!
He's a very unique character in the fact that he's more of a grey character, like you said, kind of splitting fans' opinions on whether he's good or bad, but in reality he's probably the most human character depicted in the books. Like, we've got loads of, you know, good guys, bad guys, and they're kind of completely on the dark side or completely on the light side, or like Ahsoka. He values bravery and strength. We've talked about his leadership in our favourites episode, and his courage and pride for Gondor is obvious from just seeing the movies alone. And we don't see any men other than Aragorn and Boromir come into close contact with the ring, and we know that Aragorn is not just a normal man, but the rightful king, and one of the Dunedain Rangers, yada yada. So the weakness in Boromir would likely be the same or even greater in other men. So it's kind of unfair that everyone would probably just see him be corrupted slightly, and they're like, oh, Boromir is just a weak-minded man. But no, the ring is actually really, really powerful. So
yeah, I think Boromir would probably be like one of the strongest willed of all men. So if you think that Boromir got turned easily by the ring, I think the average man would have been like 10 times worse than Boromir.
Yeah, and that's kind of something that they they could have included in the films, which they never did, or in the books, just to show the power of the ring. They could have had just some normal guy kind of come into close contact with the ring and just be like, "Ugh," turn to dust, or I don't know, just something. He just goes completely berserk, and it doesn't really happen. We're always kind of wondering what would happen if it was just a normal guy. But
well, yeah, they kind of do give you that in the movie where they tell you that they don't give you that exactly. But what I was going to say is that in the movie they kind of show you that like the race of men is the weaker race and they're less resistant to these types of things. And then even though they don't really mention that Boromir is going to be like, he is the best of the best when it comes to the race of men. And as we said, of course, we know that Aragorn is a man, but you've just alluded to there that Aragorn's not just a normal man. He's kind of he's got some royal blood in him. He's like got this like special little powers, and we've spoken about that before in other podcasts. So Boromir is like your most, like, he is just a pure blood man, and he is very noble, and he's really strong willed for a man. But even he is just so like weak when it comes to the ring, because that's just what men are.
Men are weak. The race of men is failing.
So I just wanted to give a brief little history on Boromir. First of all, the actual character himself. Boromir is probably the most classically heroic warrior within Tolkien's books. And Tolkien actually based Boromir on Roland of Charlemagne, or Charlemagne. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Of course.
French.
Old Raleigh, as I call him.
Yeah, Raleigh. Rolando. He was a Frankish historic military leader from the 700s who also carried a white horn. So you can look up pictures online and you kind of see the Boromir resemblance. I think there's a statue of him in France as well.
It's strange that they didn't get Rolando Bloom to do that character instead of Legolas.
And isn't Roland J.R.R. Tolkien's one of his names? One of his many or names? It's like John Roland.
No, not Roland. Ronald Rule. Ronald Rule.
Ah, well done. That was a test, and you passed. 5 stars.
Yeah,
but
F plus.
Boromir, he's actually Boromir the Second, son of Denethor the Second. But interestingly enough, there was a steward, Denethor the First, with a son, Boromir the First, who was also captain of Gondor. But anyways, they were, I think that was like 500 years before this Boromir. But this Boromir held titles such as Captain of the White Tower and High Warden of the White Tower. So Denethor, his father, was married to Finduilas of Dol Amroth, who was sister to Prince Imrahil of Dol Amroth. Dol Amroth now isn't mentioned in the movies, but it's a big part of the Kingdom of Gondor. And Prince Imrahil, he actually features quite heavily in the Return of the King book, as he comes to the aid at the Battle of Minas Tirith and actually takes command of the city at first when Denethor goes mad, before passing command over to Gandalf. So he's kind of like one of these semi-important characters in the books, and another one that could have gotten into the movies. And I remember his scenes from the books actually were quite cool. I don't know if you remember any of them, but
yeah, I remember a few of his scenes. I also remember that Boromir's mother, Finduilas, isn't that her name?
Yeah.
There's a lot of significance of her character as well, and she dies when Boromir and Faramir were very, very young. And
he was only 10. Yeah,
he was only 10, and Faramir was a good few years younger. And then Boromir kind of took over taking care of Faramir, and he kind of became like a father to Faramir at that stage already. And so, just as I said before, like the best big brother, like he was kind of like he raised Faramir, because obviously we know Denethor was just like didn't give a shit about Faramir.
No, so Denethor was a complete dick. Like, yeah, when his mother Finduilas died, he was only 10 and Faramir was 5, and pretty much straight away, Finduilas died from this illness, and it was actually something to do with Mordor becoming like stronger and Finduilas was becoming weaker, and then she just died. Denethor basically just became very grim and started to prefer Boromir over the younger son Faramir, even though they were very close together, the brothers. But he never liked him, and that comes across very clearly in the films as well. So there's no need to talk about. Oh, did you know that Denethor didn't actually really like Faramir?
It's I love that I love that in the movies, the way that the actor that portrays Denethor, he just I can't remember.
Oh,
I can't remember his name. That actor at the moment.
John begins with H. John Hughes something.
My father is a noble man.
He's such a fantastic director. Like he's just immediately you just like I hate this guy, and that's like such a good skill as an actor to be able to do that. And I've actually seen him in a couple of other roles. And
he's in The Boys.
He's in The Boys, but he's also in he's in an episode of Blacklist, and he's in a couple of things. And you're just like, I hate this guy all the time.
Yeah,
it's like he's always a character that you're just like, God, I hate this guy. So that's a great skill to be able to get the audience to hate you immediately. So and to ruin cherry tomatoes for me for the rest of my life.
That's such a cringy scene. I think I put it up on Twitter there a while ago. Of people always talk about what are their favorite comfort characters, and I said what are your discomfort characters, and a lot of people just basically put up that meme of him biting into a tomato. Say no more. It's pretty disgusting.
It's legendary.
And I shall not forget it.
Yeah, but back to Boromir. Boromir never took a wife, and he led many victories, including retaking Osgiliath a few years before the events of the Fellowship of the Ring. And like you said, he was beloved by many in Gondor and admired by many, even Rohirrim, such as Éomer. So yeah, in the books it talks about how Éomer is I don't know, he's not jealous of Boromir, but he knows of him and he respects him.
Respects him highly, yeah, of course. And yeah, what you mentioned there as well, just the small thing that you mentioned about Boromir not taking a wife, I think that's quite significant as well, because he is probably like the most eligible bachelor in the world of men.
Oh yeah.
And like any woman would have wanted Boromir, but he just put Gondor and he put his duty ahead of everything.
Yeah.
And he was so much like from a young age, even we were told that he was a warrior and he was like Gondor first, and that was just another thing about his character. He never got married, he never had children, because he put his role and his duty above everything else.
Yeah, he's like a Middle-earth Captain America. He'd be perfect Captain Middle-earth.
And then Boromir went back in time and met Peggy and had that.
Yeah. I love Captain America. I love Boromir.
I could do this all day.
Oh, and that actually just reminded me of something as well that I read. I don't have it on my notes here, but the orcs that killed Boromir, because there was no lurts in the books, there was just a couple of orcs that shot him dead. The orcs never talk really about, or they never would praise a warrior, but they actually talked about how they defeated the mighty warrior of Gondor when they killed Boromir. Like, you know, usually they would just say like scum and swine and things like that, but it was kind of interesting that they had a little bit of respect. Yeah,
that's cool that they like had in their like battle plan before. They're like, right, so we need to target that guy because he's the strong man, we need to kill him. So and then afterwards they're like, oh, I killed Boromir, nice one.
I think it was just boasting about how they were the ones to kill the mighty warrior Boromir, which is pretty cool. So
they got like man of the match performance. Like you killed Boromir. Well done. Here's your little trophy.
Here's your champagne.
Yeah.
That still only counts as one.
So I just want to talk about the brothers' dream as well, which is very important in the books. The brothers Grimm, Denethor's Grimm. So Boromir became very disturbed in his dreams, and his brother Faramir also had the exact same dream where they were given a riddle that neither of them could understand. In the Fellowship, Boromir says, and I quote, "In that dream, I thought the eastern sky grew dark, and there was a growing thunder, but in the west a pale light lingered, and out of it I heard a voice, remote but clear, crying, 'Seek for the sword that was broken, in Imladris it dwells. There shall be counsels taken, stronger than Morgul's spells. There shall be shown a token that doom is near at hand, for Isildur's bane shall waken, and the halfling forth shall stand.'" So
Class.
It's a cool little jingle. But in case people didn't know, Imladris is also known as Rivendell, and that is where his father Denethor sent him to decipher this riddle. So that was the reason Boromir went to the Council of Elrond in the first place, or the reason he went to Rivendell to seek answers.
And Boromir and Faramir had both had that same dream.
Yeah. The two of them had the same dream, I actually think it might have appeared to Faramir more, and he dreams an awful lot in the books. But
He's a dreamer, Faramir.
He's a dreamer, and Boromir is dreamy. And I think there was a bit of a discussion as well who was going to be the one to go to Rivendell, but Denethor was, like they showed in the movies, how he puts the foot down and says Boromir is the one who will not fail me. I just wanted to ask you as well about about Rivendell. Do you know what's off with Boromir's arrival at Rivendell in the movie? What's weird, or what's changed?
In the book, he arrives there alone and without a horse.
Oh yeah, okay, well done.
Is that it?
Yeah, that would. Yeah, basically, just that he arrives on horseback. But there's a whole ordeal of him traveling to Rivendell. It actually took him 110 days to travel the treacherous path to Rivendell.
He was out in the wild for a long time.
He was, and in the movies it shows him arriving on horseback, but the land he travelled through had fallen into decay, and the Great Road no longer existed other than some crumbling ruins. He came to a river called Greyflood, and he tried to cross the dangerous ford over a ruined bridge, but he actually lost his horse in the process and had to travel the remainder of the journey on foot. So he should have been horseless in the movie, but that's just a minor little detail.
Small little thing.
It was
kind of like that scene where they were all arriving into Rivendell, and they kind of, I'm sure Peter Jackson wanted to give each of them like this kind of heroic first appearance on screen, where Gimli comes in and Legolas comes in and Boromir comes in on his horse, and that's kind of showing you this guy is the
character of him.
If he just kind of came in like filthy dirty after like being,
that's
like,
what I was thinking.
crawling
He
through
should
like
have.
briars, and they're like, he's like, Jesus, it took me a long time to get here. You'd be like,
lads, what road did you take?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I got a bit lost there, lads. I came round by the south there. Did you come over the north, or what was going on? Because I must have been lost altogether.
Yeah, Gandalf's just like, I took an eagle down. Like, did you not catch the memo?
I think if that was his first appearance, they might have been a bit like, the audience might think this guy doesn't know what's going on. This guy's
that would have been so funny though.
Feather-headed Boromir, like so.
Yeah, he comes in and he's so clean. He looks like he's just had a wash the day before. He probably like arrived at Rivendell the day before and was like, okay, wait, don't shoot my entrance scene yet. I'm gonna scrub up and
let me get
down to the gate.
Get into my best clothes.
Maybe just slip into something a little more Boromir.
One does not simply walk into Mordor.
So we know from the rest of the film pretty much the whole lifespan of Boromir, which is sad. He has a very heroic death, but and the film does a pretty good job describing accurately everything that happens to Boromir. There are a few minor differences. I can mention some below. At one point, Boromir finds a faggot of sticks to burn, and eventually him and Aragorn carrying the hobbits down the mountain at Caradhras, and that actually turns out to be like a life-saving fire, but that's a whole other thing. We could talk about it in another podcast. Also, him being extremely against going through the Mines of Moria, and he said he would only go if all 8 members of the Fellowship voted against him.
Exactly.
And which they did.
Exactly.
Which is kind of funny.
And kind of the same with Lothlorien as well. He really didn't want to go to Lothlorien, and he kind of also, that was another moment where he kind of like put his foot down. He was like, I'm not going unless I'm the only one that doesn't want to. And again, they were like, no, we're going to go that way. So just
that was another one I had written here as well. He just did not want to go to Lothlorien.
Didn't Aragorn explain to him at that moment that it was like that there was actually no need to be afraid of Lothlorien, and only the people that were evil needed to be afraid going into Lothlorien.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well done, Jonathan. Very good.
How do you know?
Bonus gold star for you. Yeah, he said something like only the evil should fear Lothlorien, and Boromir was like, well, I don't want to be evil, so he went along. But back to where at the Mines of Moria, I think we discussed it before, but it was Boromir who threw the rock into the water, and it was just basically because he was sulking because he didn't want to go there. And then when he arrived, Gandalf didn't even know the password, and he was like,
right.
oh, for feck's sake, what are we doing here?
Yeah, after him kicking up such a big fuss about not wanting to go and saying it was a terrible idea, and they're all like, no, we're definitely going this way. And then Gandalf's like, just, you know what, I can't even remember the password. Boromir's like, for the love of God. And then he's like, I'm going to wake up the Watcher, and he's going to kill you all now.
Exactly. So he just throws a rock in, and that leads to the whole watch
Yeah.
of the water sequence, which is pretty dope.
Yeah.
But yeah, also one weird thing that I think it's weird that they left it out of the movies because they show everybody else getting the gifts. But do you remember what Boromir's gift was at Lothlorien?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was it a gold? I think it was a gold belt.
Yeah, exactly. Well done.
Yeah.
Another gold star for you. But yeah, I don't know why they left that out of the movie. But
Yeah, I don't know.
I remember reading that in the book, and I was like, "Oh, cool!" I
He did get something.
didn't notice.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I noticed he didn't get anything in the films, but I was like, "Oh yeah, what does Boromir get? He gets a belt." Well, there you go.
Yeah, I don't think I noticed either until I probably saw some memes that were like he didn't get anything, and I was kind of like, oh yeah, I didn't even really recognize that. Or I didn't even really
Probably because he was sulking. He didn't want to come into Lothlorien, so they were like, "Well, no presents for you."
Also, just to speak about Boromir for a moment, and kind of one of his best like scenes that he has in the book, I believe, is when they're on Caradhras and on the Red Horn, the mountain, and when you said that about how he brought that faggot of sticks, and that ends up like saving their lives almost because they use that to stay warm, but also when they actually decide to go back down, and he and Aragorn carry the hobbits down, and they're like basically in this like this storm, this snowstorm, this blizzard, and they're just kind of digging their way out. They're just fighting through, and like everybody's like on death's door, and Boromir and Aragorn just spend the whole night digging a path out, and it's just like this amazing scene where Boromir is just showing his courage and his strength and his honor. And again, that's kind of
and his loyalty to his friends and his group as well.
They do show in the movie, I suppose, where he's like really on the. He's actually really in favor of going through the mines in the movie, because he's saying like, this will be the death of the hobbits and stuff, and you can see from that moment he's already starting to kind of make friends with the hobbits, and kind of they show
protecting
the scene of him,
them as well.
yeah, protecting them.
The
They
little
show
ones.
the scene of him teaching them how to like use a sword, and then he's like really protective of them when they're on the mountain. So they kind of do give you a little like little glimpses of his good character in those moments as well.
Yeah, and that leading to his death as well, making it such a cool but honourable and sad death, how he fights to the very end to try and protect the hobbits.
Yeah.
We cannot stay here! This will be the death of the hobbits!
Oh yeah, and there is just another little interesting thing. They kind of show it in the movies a little bit, but when he's kind of slowly getting corrupted by the ring after Moria, and as he's sailing down the Rorus River, he keeps like glancing at Frodo, and he's giving him these weird looks, and other members of the Fellowship notice it, and I think Tolkien even says that he kind of his boat veers towards Frodo every so often as well. So it's just kind of just shows how the ring is kind of taking effect on him and is gripping his heart. But then he does have that redemption where he asks for Aragorn's forgiveness right at the end. He at first he lies to the Fellowship and doesn't tell them what he did with Frodo.
Doesn't tell the whole truth. Yeah.
He doesn't tell the whole truth, but at the end he does when he's when he's dying. He asks Aragorn's forgiveness, which Aragorn does forgive him, and happy days, he dies, and blah blah blah.
And that's always the part where I break down and become a 4-year-old girl.
Forgive me. I did not see. I have failed you all.
Something interesting about Sean Bean is that he is deathly afraid of heights, and for all the paths of Caradhras scenes, which are high up in the snowy mountains of New Zealand, he refused to go into the helicopter up to the mountain. So instead, he got a ski lift up every morning, some of the way, and then hiked a further 2 hours in his full Boromir outfit every single day that they filmed these scenes. So I think that's kind of similar to how Boromir hiked for weeks to get to Rivendell. He's just, Sean Bean he's a cool guy, but I think that shows dedication.
I loved it. I love that story. I've heard that story before, and I've heard, I can't remember which cast member was speaking about it, but saying how they'd fly up in the helicopter and they'd look down and they'd just see Sean Bean in full Boromir gear hiking up the side of a mountain. They were like kind of saying it was so cool. It was like Boromir in real life just climbing up the mountain. And
and he would arrive and he'd be like so sweaty and dirty, and you know he would have had to
perfect for the role of Boromir.
Yeah, perfect. And he would have woken up like hours before everyone else as well, which is funny. And I think they had to shoot some scenes pretty early, but yeah, what a man.
It's a dedication to not getting into a helicopter.
Or maybe he was just really stubborn and he was like, I'm not getting a helicopter, and Jackson was like, you're getting one. He's like, no, I'm gonna hike.
I'll show you.
They
will look for his coming from the White Tower, but he will not return.
Do you know Sean Bean was once stabbed in a bar in London as well?
Surprised he didn't die. In the scene in London in the bar, that's where Sean Bean died.
If someone directed that, he would have died.
Exactly. No, I didn't know about that. So
yeah, that's all I know about it. I don't know any more of that story. I didn't research anymore. You thought I was going to tell you a big story,
you're going
right?
to tell me a cool story. Yeah.
Or it was like the start of a joke, but no, that's it. If anyone knows that story, let us know.
Interesting anecdote that he got stabbed, but I don't know by whom or what happened or anything like that.
Or if it's true, or was it Sean Bean, or
maybe it was a character that he was playing. But no, if it was a character he was playing, that character would have died. So
he would have died, and we all would have been very sad. Dark Knight.
Riddles in the dark.
So this is a section called Riddles in the Dark, where I, Dave, ask Johnny a question and he's completely in the dark about it, and he's going to give me his best answer. So, Johnny, why did I write down this question really weird? No, why does Theoden or no Rohan representative feature at the Council of Elrond?
Good question.
Thank you.
Is it because they're at war at the time and they're like dealing with? I'm trying to remember if they're like. I know that like Rohan has got loads of little mini wars going on all over the place, but I'm not too sure about that. Also, Theoden is probably under the control of Saruman at this time, and maybe he's not like, maybe he doesn't get along very well with Elrond. I'm not sure.
Close, but you're way off. According to the Fellowship of the Ring, Book 2, Chapter 2, The Council of Elrond, and that's also a plug.
Shout out.
Everyone at the shout out. Everyone at the Council of Elrond either lived at Rivendell, so Elrond, Bilbo, Aragorn, whenever he's not journeying around, or else they just happen to be there on other business, such as Gandalf, Frodo, or Galdor, or Legolas, because Legolas had a message that Gollum had escaped, basically, so that was the reason he was there. Gloin and Gimli had a message from Dane, and Boromir, well, we discussed why Boromir was there. So basically, there weren't any invitations sent. It was just whoever happened to be there, and that, I don't know, I think maybe it just happened to be an important council. Whereas in the film, it kind of makes it seem like, oh, this is the big council where we have to discuss the ongoings of what's to determine the fate of our lives. But yeah, no, in the books, it was just whoever happened to be there. So there didn't happen to be any Rohirrim charging through the gates at that time.
Wow. Yeah, kind of. That's really interesting. It's really interesting. So it's cool that like they just happen to have some of these like best warriors ever just on hand in Rivendell at that time.
Yeah. And it is cool, and if you think back, you would kind of wonder why aren't the most important people there? Well, there are a lot of very important people there, but it would make sense that someone like Theoden or someone from one of the other kingdoms, but especially Theoden because he features heavily in the films, he should have been there.
Yeah, but as I said before, Theoden probably wouldn't have been arse going because he was
maybe
under the influence of Saruman deeply at that time.
But even just a representative like Éomer, anyone that would have any, even Grima.
Yeah, but the thing is, I suppose at that time Grima was calling the shots, and he would have been speaking to Saruman, and Saruman would have not been like in favor of helping them. Maybe Saruman would have been in favor of somebody going, like Grima going, even just to kind of figure out what's going on and to be kind of like be in the know of what was happening. But yeah,
and I didn't think about this at the time, but I wonder how long all those characters were there before they decided on having this council. So did it just so happen that the next day after Boromir arrived, after Legolas arrived, after Gimli arrived, that they just had a big council? Or was it more, oh guys, by the way, if you want to stick around, we're having this meeting in a few days.
It's going to be epic. It's going to be called the Council of Elrond. We've got a name for it already. We're going to sit in a semicircle. It's going to be great. You're going to love it.
They're going to podcast it about it in hundreds of years' time.
Exactly. It's going to be a thing.
It's going to be amazing. Yeah, but who knows? If anyone knows any further information, let us know.
But do you understand why I had to kill him? The man who passes the sentence should swing the sword.
Well, that's all from us this week on the Council of Elrond. We just want to thank you guys for your ongoing support and for just listening to what we have to say about Lord of the Rings. If you're enjoying these podcasts, please help us out by leaving a 5-star review on your platform of choice, and maybe consider sharing this podcast with a friend. You can find the links to our Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook in the podcast info section. We'll see you next time. The road is now calling, and I must away.